Welcome back, everybody, to the second Common SenseIVORE podcast. I am Jerry Brazee, and I am a carnivore eater, and I am a carnivore eater who has gotten in the best shape of his life at 54 years old, and the sky is the limit as I move forward. So let's talk about the carnivore diet and the why. Why carnivore diet of all diets? Why the Common SenseIVORE as a name for the podcast? I wanted to use Common SenseIVORE as the name because my mission in life is to get everybody to get rid of sugar and to get rid of processed foods. If you start at those two things. So when I said common sense, it's a common sense approach to the carnivore diet, a common sense approach to a diet, a common sense approach to a lifestyle, a common sense approach to simply what you eat and what makes sense. Now, I believe that overall, health benefits, weight loss, better shape, muscle growth, energy, stamina, improved mood, better sleep, reduced pain, clearer skin, increased energy levels, reduced inflammation, improved gut health, again, overall, improved mental clarity, cleaner skin, clearer skin. The carnivore diet has so many benefits. And the things that go away from the carnivore diet, let's call it the things that, quite frankly, that I miss, I suppose, things like bleeding gums, sunburns, joint stiffness, back pain, hunger, and lack of energy. Those things, you could say those are what you miss because that was my life. I just described it to you. That's what I had to deal with on a daily basis. So that's why I advocate for the carnivore diet, because it seems to affect every part of my daily life. It's fascinating. And this is why I advocate it as vociferously and energetically as I do. But the Common SenseIVORE is about getting in shape, feeling better, getting healthy. Now, getting healthy might be losing weight. I think that's number one in multiple steps to being healthy. Losing weight will make you healthier. Losing weight will improve all of those things. But getting healthy is more about than just losing weight. And so the carnivore diet for me is an all-encompassing lifestyle that results in an improvement across the board in all of the things I want to have better, and an improvement across the board in all the things that I would like to have go away. I've not seen that anywhere else, but that's why I advocate so strongly for the carnivore diet. But again, it comes back to the common sense approach to being healthy. So if that's keto, you want to eat 100 grams of carbs a day, great. You want to eat 500 grams of carbs a day, great. Just make sure it's not sugar and it's not processed foods. That stuff is garbage. That stuff will kill you. And the problem is that people who go on this lifestyle, carnivore, or the people who just simply try to cut out sugar and processed foods struggle, and they struggle mightily. And they blame the diet for the struggle. And the reality is very different. So there is a field of advice out there on social media that says, listen to your body when you start this diet, and you should break yourself in slowly on the diet. That is, if you're going to do carnivore, cut out the sugars and cut out the processed foods slowly, and start to introduce more meat regularly as the days and the weeks go by. And listen to your body and see how you feel, and be patient because it takes time for your body to adjust to the carnivore diet. That's true. But in that being patient, you want to make sure, though, that the effects of your body healing, the process by which you are removing everything that is bad for you, all of the chemical stew that you have had in your body for many of us decades and decades, and you're talking a long time, it doesn't change overnight, and your brain and your body is going to fight back. So when the advice is to listen to your body, and if you feel good, keep going. If you start to feel bad, take a break and make some changes. I think that's all BS. I don't agree with any of that. The carnivore diet, in particular, any diet, but really, especially getting rid of sugar and processed foods, you are going to feel terrible. There's no two ways around it. There are some people that don't feel terrible, and I'm jealous as hell of them. And God bless them. They got off easy. For me, it was a nightmare. 30, 35 days of utter hell. I hated every second of it. It was one day at a time. It was grit and determination and discipline and a absolute hatred of dying, of being fat, of not breathing, of being sore, of being hurt, of being a victim, of not being able to defend myself, of everything that made me a man was gone. And I wanted all that back. And the only way I could get there was to find that baseline. I'm an entrepreneur by trade. Bought and sold a dozen businesses over the last 30 years. And so I have an analytical mind that makes its way towards numbers. And I said, deductive reasoning here would dictate that I just go to the baseline and figure out what's wrong with me. Start there. So what's the baseline? Fat and protein. That was my approach to the carnivore diet, fat and protein. I was miserable, but I understood, like any addict would, that being miserable is part of the process. I had been addicted to opioids 3 different times in my life because of all of the back issues I've had breaking my back as a teenager. And I understood addiction, and I understood coming off of addiction. I often say on my podcast, the Jerry Brazee podcast, that getting off of some of these stronger opioids in the amounts I was taking, 250, 300 milligrams of OxyContin every single day, of morphine every single day, of a drug called oxymorphon, which is a morphine OxyContin mix. Taking hundreds of milligrams of these pills every single day, waking up in the middle of the night, setting my alarm and having it sitting next on my dresser at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning and taking it so I didn't wake up the next morning in withdrawal. I understand what it means. And when you stop, it feels like the marrow in your bones is going to crawl out. It's trying to get out through your bone and through your skin. That's how I define it. It is as miserable a process as you can imagine. My first one took about 30 days, and I had the flu for a good 20 of it. My second one, morphine or methadone, I'd taken for about a year and a half, completely addicted to it. Took me about 30, 35 days, and I was sick for almost every one of them. And finally, oxymorphon. I was on it for about a year and a half, taking 260, 280 milligrams a day. And coming off of that was a way different experience. And it took me much longer to come off of that. And it also stayed with me a lot longer. We're talking months before I was finally over it. So I understand addiction. I understand where that comes from and how that feels. And let me tell you all something right now, no matter how bad you feel, sugar addiction, while strong, sugar addiction, while also very mental, as well as physical, drug addiction, particularly opioid addiction, is stronger when it is both, but many times it is more physical than it is mental. In my case, it was purely physical. And so as I dealt with that and I went through those processes over the course of the last 20 years, I gained that experience. And so when it came to carnivore and changing my diet and living with the pain that would come with the withdrawal as you get rid of the poison in the drug that is sugar and the poison in the drug that is processed foods. And for me, the poison in the drug that is many, many, many carbohydrates that simply turn into sugar, the addiction to fruit and things of that nature for the sweetness of it, because they have manipulated fruit to such an extent that it's barely recognizable by anybody that ate an apple 200 years ago. It's sweet and it's luscious and it's juicy and it's pleasant to look at. It's been scientifically manipulated to look and feel and taste the way that it does. It's been covered in chemicals and covered in chemicals again, and then shipped to you covered in a wax to make sure that it looks as good as humanly possible. And when you eat it, you get a rush from it. That to me is a drug. Now, it's not as bad as sugar, but to me, it's not as benign as anything. It's not as benign as, say, as meat, for instance, or as dairy. I think that fruit is a dessert and should be eaten as a dessert and appreciated as a dessert. But that addiction to these sugars and to these carbohydrates and to these processed foods is strong. It is difficult. And the withdrawal and the way that your brain will mess with you when you do it is very hard. So you have to know, I said all that to say, you have to know what's coming. You got to know how it feels. You got to anticipate it. So when your body starts to throw things at you from left field, and I mean it will, day 4 or day 8 and day 14 for me, I couldn't swallow my steak. I'd chew it in my mouth, and my body, my brain was instructing my body, I am assuming, because I could not swallow it. I ended up taking it out of my mouth and giving it to my dog. And no matter what I did, no matter what I swallowed it with, drank water, no matter what I did, I couldn't swallow it. It was the damnedest thing. And I remember thinking at the time, there are forces at work here that are working against me. I have to stay with it. When the diarrhea sets in, about day 8 for me through day 12, day 14, immediately you're saying this diet's ruining my life. I'm miserable. I'm withdrawing. My energy is low. My brain is telling me I got it. I need the cravings. I have to fulfill them. I have to go in. The habits, I'm sitting in that same chair every day at 10 o'clock at night. I got to go get some Doritos that I've been doing forever, like smoking a cigarette when you get out of bed in the morning. The strong. You're going to want to follow up on them. All of this is attacking you. Your brain is saying, I need carbohydrates. I need sugar. I need energy. I need quick energy so I can store fat but still power the body. Again, the brain thinking it's saving you by killing you. It doesn't know any better. So you have to deal with all this as the day goes on and the day turns into another day. And that's why one day at a time, and you have to stay with it. You have to break that cycle. And some people are able to do it really easily and don't go through it, a lot of what I went through. And some people have as hard a time as I do and even harder. And that's why so many people fail, I believe, in the first couple of weeks. So I am not somebody that says, listen to your body in the beginning. If you feel good, keep going, because you ain't going to feel good. You're going to feel like garbage. There's no two ways around it. And if you start to feel bad, lean into it. Don't take a break. Stay with it. It will get better, because come day 40 for me, I turned the clock back for 5 years. Day 75, 80, I turned the clock back 10 years. Day 200, I turned the clock back 20 years. It happened that quick. So be patient. Takes your body time to adjust to that carnivore diet. You're not going to see the results overnight. You have to go through hell to get there. But hell is worth it, because it is a cheap price to pay. So on the Common SenseIVORE podcast, I want to talk about the carnivore in that detail. But also, I would say the same thing for all of that I would say about sugar and carbs. Sugar and processed food. If you can't do the carnivore diet and you're sure, although I think that's the best way to go, but you just don't want to do it or you can't do it, that's fine. Reduce your calories, maybe a good keto diet. Reduce your calories down to less than 100, less than 50's even better. But get rid of sugar and get rid of processed food and get ready for the pain when you do it, because it is very uncomfortable. So when you start the carnivore diet, you can eat anything that comes from an animal. So whatever it is that you want, and this is my carnivore diet, whatever it is that you want. Some months, there's been 2 or 3 months over the last year and a half as I started on January 1st. We're now, in the middle of September. So the last year and 9 months, 21 months, I have had 3 of those months that I ate all red meat, and I felt great. I probably felt better eating all red meat than I did eating anything that came from an animal. And so you say, well, Jerry, then why didn't you stay with all red meat? Because I like eggs, and I like cheese, and I like bacon, and I like sausage, and I like being successful, and I like my lifestyle, and I like how I feel on that lifestyle. And I feel eating all of those things 10 billion times better than I felt when I started eating all of the garbage. Now I feel better when I did all red meat, but it was incremental. And so I'm willing to eat what I call my carnivore diet, anything that comes from an animal. But I understand why people argue back that it should be red meat only, because when I do red meat only, I do feel better, but I don't feel as fulfilled. I like these other foods, and so I'm going to continue to eat them. So you can eat fish and eggs and and dairy. I stay away from milk, as I've said, and I think you should too. It's full of sugar. I have it about once every month. I love a big glass of milk when I take my eggs and my cheese. I have 8 eggs for breakfast every morning, sausage and or bacon with it. I throw a bunch of hot sauce, have at the spices, fellas. As long as it doesn't have sugar in it, you can have all you want. I throw a bunch of hot sauce in those eggs, so it's got a little bit of heat to it, and then put cheddar cheese over the top of it, and that's my breakfast by and large every morning, sometimes with cheese, sometimes without cheese, always with the hot sauce, and once a month or so, I'll fill up a big old glass of milk and put that down, but milk is full of sugar, and so I stay away from milk whenever possible, which is most of the time, like I said, maybe once a month, maybe once every couple of months. I forget. I get out of the habit so much because food does not control me that I don't think about it. And a couple of months go by and I'm like, I think I'll have a nice glass of, whole milk or 2% milk at a minimum. If you can get raw milk, that's the best. Personally, I don't like it. So I like whole milk or 2% milk. And so, any kind of fats, butter, olive oil, if you wish, avocado oil, if you want to, ghee for sure. That's great for cooking. All of those that you can tallow, beef tallow in particular, all of those you can have, you can eat, you can cook with, hamburger. That's my favorite 80-20 hamburger, cheese on top with a big old couple of thick cut pieces of bacon, have at it. Man, it's so good. And water. Water is the critical ingredient, I think, in the diet. The lifestyle is water. I say for men, a gallon of water a day. For women, at least 3/4 of a gallon of water. Many experts will say to you, and you'll learn over time on this Carnivore podcast as the Common SenseIVORE takes off. The common sense approach to this is my experience in doing what I could to find a lifestyle that I could follow and one that I liked. So I didn't want to start something where I had to eat rice cakes because I would have failed. If I tried that, I would have failed, and I knew that I would fail. So one of the other approaches to carnivore and why it seemed like a perfect diet for me was not only that baseline that we talked about earlier, but also the fact that I could eat things that I like. There's nothing on this diet that I don't like to eat. And if I didn't like to make something, if I didn't like to eat something, I'm just not going to do it. I just wouldn't do it. So in that context, I made sure that I was eating things that I liked, and I was setting myself up for success. And this is another step here. If you are going to start any diet, I think, any lifestyle, keto, vegetarianism, I don't care what it is, anything that gets rid of sugar and processed food. And another hack that I had for myself, because I knew myself, was these guys that tell you that in order to have a healthy diet, the diet is the food that you put it in your mouth, that you have to do meal prep on Sunday night. And you can see 1,000 videos up there of people with just the best looking Tupperware you've ever seen and perfectly stacked refrigerators with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday meals all the way across. And everything they're ever going to eat is weighed out and done. And they spend 2-3 hours every Sunday night cooking, and then a couple hours boxing it up and getting it all ready and just put it in that perfect refrigerator. And I'm jealous as hell because I don't have the skill, the time, or the patience to do any of that, but I'm jealous of the people that can. So if you are like me, I know the importance of eating consistently the way that they do. So the carnivore diet was the perfect diet for me because I could stick to those foods that I needed to eat. I could cook them quickly on the fly as needed, and I could buy them when I needed to if I wasn't in front of a stove where I could cook them myself. So this is one of the other advantages to the carnivore diet, I think, is that it's easy to eat in a busy world. In a life where we all have things to do, I think the carnivore diet lends itself to making eating healthy. I think eating only fats and protein is the healthiest way to eat. So in the context of the carnivore diet, the healthiest way you can possibly eat is also the easiest way, I think, to eat. I've never done meal prep in my life. I've never gotten one thing ready to eat ever, save for my water and ice in a 66-ounce jug that I drink it out of, and I do it the night before, so I have it ready when I get up to go to work first thing in the morning. And so that's what I do or don't do, as the case may be. And that's what lent itself to my success, is that I put as little pressure on myself, both physically and mentally being not trying to force down garbage that I don't like, foods that I don't like, and physically by not doing the meal prep and getting all the stuff ready. This is not an indictment. As I said earlier, I'm jealous of people who do that. And if you can do that, good for you, have at it. But for too many, most, I'm going to say, because I have talked to hundreds and hundreds of people over the last year, my sense is cooking that steak when you're hungry is the way to go. My sense is having those eggs and that bacon. Well, you might want to cook it the night before to eat it the next morning. You can't go out too many days with that stuff anyway. And if you're not the type of person to do it, don't do it. The carnivore diet lends itself to ease in another way also, which is you don't have to eat. So what I mean by that, so I do not eat within 3 hours of getting up in the morning 95% of the time, and I don't eat 3 hours going to bed 95% of the time. Sometimes my schedule dictates and I'm so hungry that I have to eat, but this is now today. Back when I did it to get down to my fighting weight, if you will, I was able to just simply not eat until I had time to eat. And that lends itself to, again, to ease the diet. You don't have time in the morning, Jerry. I have to get my food ready, but I'm too lazy to get my food ready. And that's critical part too, is being honest. Critical part to being healthy, getting in shape, feeling younger, getting your energy back. All is about being honest. The whole game is a discipline game. The whole game is a mind game. There's very little physical. Going to the gym, working out, all of that pales in comparison, discipline-wise, to the discipline it takes to just do the act, to get started and to stay with it. It's much, much, much more difficult. If you can master the mind, you'll master the body. But remember, the mind will always give out before the body does. And so not eating, once I figured this out 35, 40, 45 days in, that I didn't need to eat and that my body had more than enough and it will feed itself as it needs to, meant that if I didn't have time to eat, I didn't feel forced to do it. And I was none the worse the wear for it. Early first 35, 40 days I was, but post 40, 45 days, I started to feel so good regardless of whether or not I eat. Now I can go 2-3 days without eating and no ill effects. I get super hungry about 18, 20 hours in, and then it goes away. And about 36 hours, I start to get hungry again. That's just how it works for me. I've never tried to go 48 hours. But I would do it, I think, without much difficulty. So it lends itself to a much easier diet from that perspective. So there are advantages to simplicity. There is an advantage to simplicity to make sure that you're successful when you're going on a diet, a lifestyle, and carnivore happens to be, for me, the smartest one, and it checked all of the boxes from that perspective, regardless of the fact that I believe that it's the most healthy and valuable way to eat that we can do. But regardless, eat what you want, cut out processed foods and sugars. And if you just don't want to get food ready and buy the Tupperware and all that, I'm going to encourage you by telling you my story, and that you don't have to. But it's a great way to improve your health and your well-being. And I encourage you to do some research on it and to give it a try. Look at, you can literally find everything on my Instagram page, on my Facebook page, on my TikTok page, all the information you need to do based on what I just did, losing 93 odd pounds, putting on 25 pounds of muscle over the last year and a half, is right there for you. So you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to do anything. You just go watch those videos. There's a billion other videos by a billion other people, I'm sure, that you can go watch that are success stories. I try to break it down so you can see step by step. You can see what I'm eating. You can see, if you watched all the videos, you'll see how I feel. You'll see what I'm doing. You'll see the progression. You'll see the setbacks. You'll see the days I'm tired and I don't want to do anything, and yet there I am at the gym. You'll see the days where I'm euphoric and can't believe that this way of eating and this healthy lifestyle is as valuable as it is. It is not all, and the internet does a very bad job of portraying this. It is not all rainbows, unicorns, and roses. In fact, it is less those things and more discipline, more forced physical behavior, more mental war, until you get to the point where you are the master of your destiny. You are the one in charge. You are the one making the decisions, not your runaway brain based on foods that you are addicted to, based on advertising that you have seen your entire life, and based on the fact that your government and your pharma and your food corporations have all conspired against you to feed you this toxic slop. It doesn't mean it's not your fault, because it is. You're the one putting it in your mouth. But being aware of what you're battling out there is, as they say, half the battle. In that context, then you just have to stay with it. And I mean, it's gotten rid of, you can find on the internet so many testimonials for diabetes and autoimmune diseases and health conditions, arthritis going away. I mean, I had the arthritis, my AFib and my A-flutter have all but disappeared. My pain that had me addicted to opioids has all but disappeared. And I've had 17 procedures on my back, and the only thing that fixed it is at 52 years old, I went and lost all this weight, put on all this muscle. But I think the diet, the food that I eat, the energy sources and the nutrients that I put in my mouth via fat and protein is probably what has done me the most. So go in, give it a try. Understand there's going to be a battle. If you choose to eat 100% or 100 carbs a day or less, that's fine. But track your food, track your calories. I know, again, for every person that says track calories, you'll find experts that say don't track calories. For every expert that says check your cholesterol, you'll find experts that say don't check your cholesterol. You can find somebody on both sides of the divide to tell you what you should do. So much so that pretty soon you're looking two ways out of either one of your eyes, and you don't know which way to go. My story, and if I do anything in helping anybody watching or listening, is that I lived it. I did it. I'm you. I'm you. I'm the obesely overweight, sickly, diseased, over 50 years old, stressed beyond recognition, pushing, barely surviving, on my way out the door, slowly but steadily dying, classic American diet eating American. We are the same. And so in that context, I want to tell my story so that while we can all listen to doctors, which I do, we can all listen to the podcasts with the experts on it that have done all the research and looked at all the studies, which I do. My lived experience on Carnivore has me going in directions that are at times in direct contravention to the things that I have learned. But at the same time, there are things that I do that I learned via these same resources that have benefited me. The sauna being probably top of that line. You have to find a sauna because sauna has been magic. I started a sauna August of last year. I spend 20 to 30 minutes in one almost literally every day, and it's the greatest thing in my life. It has the best impact, I believe, not only for recovery. I mean, I feel better walking out of the gym than I did walking into it. And I think I owe a lot of that to the sauna. So as an example, I listen to podcasts. I agreed with the sauna. Cold plunge would be another one of those things. Supplementation, I don't do any of it, but I'm just starting to get into with some protein supplementation. So you can experiment there. So you can find people in from every aspect that will tell you what you want to hear if you look hard enough. You will find experts on both sides. So this podcast, this Common SenseIVORE podcast is about getting healthy in a way that worked for me, the simplest way possible, what turned out to be the healthiest way possible. And it brought me to the best health of my entire life at 54, with a heart that's got a 40% block in its left ventricle, with a back that's been operated more times than I can count, has more scar tissue in it. I didn't know this. They can no longer put steroid injections in the base of my spine. There's so much scar tissue, and it's so thick that they're needles. The medical needle, it's a needle about this long, I should point out, will no longer go through the scar tissue. That's how thick the scar tissue is in my back. So when they go in to try to put steroids in it, they have to go up through my tailbone with a needle that's about yay long and it's flexible, and they move it all up there. And instead of pinpointing where they put the steroids like they do when they come in the side and go into your spine, they're just carpet bombing the base of my spine to try to make the pain go away. It never worked. And it was miserable to have that shoved up your tailbone, I can tell you. You know what worked? After 30 years of dealing with that, it worked. I lost all the weight. And not only lost all the weight, but I put on all the muscle. And not only put on all the muscle, but I got rid of all the inflammation. Not only did I get rid of all the inflammation, all the soreness then went with it. So that I felt good in a way that I have not felt, as I said, since I was a kid. And by kid, I mean in my teen years. So that, to me, is the carnivore diet. They call it a controversial diet. They call it, again, diet in the context of what you put in your mouth. I don't want to say that it's controversial. I think that it is pragmatic. I think that it's simple. It is straightforward. It beats the hell out of being 330 pounds, 400 pounds, and obese and miserable, and you can't get up and you can't move, and your skin's changing colors and things are going wrong, and you can't get upstairs or downstairs or into bed. I couldn't get out of bed to turn on my side and push myself up, and it was a nightmare to walk to the bathroom every day, and I got sick of it. I got tired of it. You have to make changes. And you can sit and think about it, and you can argue about it, and we can talk about heart healthy this and heart healthy that, but I'm just telling you that this carnivore podcast, the Common SenseIVORE podcast, and my life is about the changes that I made that were successful, that put me in front of you, feeling the way I do, looking the way I do, with the energy, both mentally and physically and emotionally, that I have from someone who was dying a year and a half ago. And I got all of that, all of those things as I just described, in about 8 months. I lost 10.2 pounds a month for 9 months. So you can do it too. I simply did it on the carnivore diet. I want to see you cut out sugar and cut out processed foods. And that's what this carnivore podcast is about. So in closing, I want to say one thing. You can think too much. You can overthink anything. And there is a movement as these types of lifestyles start to gain steam and start to roll downhill and snowball, if you will. You have to watch out for those food companies and those pharmaceutical companies that want to take advantage of you. And so when you start to see things like keto friendly and carb friendly and carnivore friendly, things of that nature, remember, if it comes in a bag, if it comes prepackaged, if it's nice and colorful and it looks pretty and it looks like candy, you can't eat it. It's no good. Remember, there's no healthy desserts of any kind. So I don't care what dessert you're eating, there's no healthy dessert. And trying to shortcut that, I think, is only going to take you backwards, not forwards, especially when you are in the middle of the journey. You cannot go backwards. You have to go forwards. And so you might as well just bite the bullet and don't try to fool yourself by eating a sweet this or a sweet that. And by sweet this or that, I mean a sugar-free this or a diet that. Don't eat any of that stuff. There's no healthy sweeteners. There's no healthy desserts, especially when you're going through it. I will do it now at 235 pounds. And as healthy as I am, I will have one now and then, and I believe I can handle it, and I believe I can eat it, and I enjoy it, and I go right back to doing what I'm doing. But when you're in the battle to get that weight under control, stay away from what they call, desserts, if you will, diet desserts or sugar-free desserts or any of that, because that stuff, it'll put you back on a path you don't want to go on very, very quickly, because they do it very, very well. This comes again from somebody who loves a root beer zero, sugar-free root beer, and I would drink 2 every single day if I would let myself, but I don't. But I do have one with a steak every now and then. So remember, carnivore diet. The Common SenseIVORE podcast is about the carnivore diet, but it's also about a common sense approach to your health. And if that means just cutting out sugar and processed food, let's get it started. That is podcast number 2. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, leave a comment if you would, and for sure forward this to anybody that you think might like to hear what the carnivore lifestyle is about, what the benefits of it are, and what from a healthy perspective they can do, from a health perspective they can do to improve those things in their life. We're going to be talking about, with guests, what experiences people have had, what experts are telling us, the exercises that I'm doing, what exercises you might do to help yourself either at home or at the gym if you can get to a gym. Again, walking being a perfect way to exercise. and an undervalued benefit and value that we need to all understand much better than we do. Simply going for a walk is huge every day, and it will show benefits over the long term. So I appreciate you listening. Like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time when we do episode 3 of the Common SenseIVORE, and we should be doing 2 a week is my plan going forward. I'm out of town next week. I'll be up in Portland, and so we will get right back at it as soon as I get back. And in the meantime, we'll be lining up some guests. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please reach out to my DM and all social media. I watch it all, and I will answer them all. And if you know somebody that would like to, please forward it to them. Let them see what we're doing, and let's get this podcast rocking. I appreciate it. Opportunities are everywhere. You got to go get them. Start by going for a walk.